So how are they supposed to beat? What's up, guys? Welcome to here, and here we are to do a quick discussion on whether or not Sukuna was a mistake. And not in the sense that he was an unwanted child, meaning he was clearly already a mistake. I mean, was he a mistake in like a writing sense? Like, did Gege kind of write themselves into a corner or not by making the king of curses, Roman Sukuna, as strong as he is for, I'm not going to say no reason, but for good reason. But was that reason good enough? And ultimately has Gege inadvertently doomed the series to some sort of nonsense by making Ryomen Sukuna as powerful as he is. But let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. What's up, guys? I'm here. Fun fact, I do have it on me. And I keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, if you didn't know, shock horror, I know. Sukuna Ryomen, he's a pretty powerful dude. Pretty definitively the strongest in the verse now. I think there's no real... I've seen people still putting Gojo above, and I can definitely understand that, right? Like, if you go through the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, you can definitely see Gojo as some sort of serious element of superiority over Sukuna in their respective domain clashes and stuff like that. But especially considering what 236 establishes with both Sukuna and Gojo and the whole dynamic and how Gojo feels about it, and considering the massive buff that true form Sukuna seems to get on multiple various levels that we don't actually get to see Gojo directly compete with, plus Sukuna's new acquiring of the spatial slash, the deadly dismantle, if you will, where he can just, and suddenly you, your mama, and everything in the general vicinity, including space itself, gets erased. I think it's pretty fair to say that Ryomen Sukuna is the strongest character in the series. Now the question is, was this a good thing? Now, there are a bunch of different reasons why Satoru Gojo had to get Satoru Gojo. I was about to make a horrible joke. But there are many reasons why Satoru Gojo had to get God. Let's be real. Number one, he's Satoru Gojo. We had to get him about here somehow. I was in denial, and I was wrong about it. I thought bro was gonna be cooking. He's gonna fight the murder. We're gonna get some good stuff. But obviously Satoru Gojo had to go. But of course, considering Satoru Gojo, you did need to get rid of him somehow. You couldn't just randomly have him and then, like, expect us to be okay with that. Like, remember, the entire back half of the series, I'd say ever since the early 100s, its main goal was to get the Blue-Eyed King back. We spent multiple years well, not in narrative, we spent like 2 weeks in narrative, but we spent multiple years in real life waiting for Satoru Gojo to come back. And thusly, in order to get rid of him, it had to be with something climactic. It had to be with something crazy. It had to be with something worthy of Satoru Gojo as a character, as a fighter, as a pinnacle of power within the series. And thusly, the long establishment of Ryomen Sukuna was the perfect way to get rid of him, in my opinion. I think it actually adds to Gojo's character, so I'm not too mad at the glazing for Sukuna, but it is a thing that people have had opinions on, and I don't even knock that. But Gojo having to get got makes sense. Makes absolute sense. But due to that, there are the questions of why Gojo had to go, right? Was it just because, well, it was his time? Was it because it fits his character? Was it because he was a little bit too strong for the plot, for the good guys? Could be that, could be the second thing, could be the third thing, could be a mix of all three, but regardless, Gojo had to go. But if you ask me, one of the biggest reasons why he had to go was his overwhelming power. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to write a series with overpowered protagonists. I think of this example all the time. Seven Deadly Sins has a very overpowered cast in the early game. The cast doesn't get nerfed in the late game, or in the mid-series, or by the late series. Just stronger things keep getting introduced. It's the Dragon Ball problem all over again, where while there was seemingly a set pinnacle of power within the Seven Deadly Sins universe, being the sins themselves, yeah, we kind of just have to keep pushing that ceiling, or else we can't have any plot progression. And unfortunately, with Gojo being established as kind of the ceiling that we can't push up against, at least Gege didn't want to push up against it all too much, though you could argue they ended up doing, thusly, you kind of needed to knock that thing down because this thing was on the side of our protagonist, and thusly getting rid of him is the wise decision in order to keep tension alive in the narrative. But unfortunately, you run into the problem, the endless problem, when it comes to executing the peak of your power system, literally and or figuratively. By Gojo, you had to introduce something stronger. Or at least something that was strong enough. And that was Sukuna, naturally, right? But the big issue with giving Sukuna pretty much what seems to be a full refresh at the end of their battle, and on top of that, giving Sukuna a weapon that he can kind of just free fire, whether or not he has his curse technique active or not, is that we run into the issue where he's a bit too strong again. The issue with Gojo is that he was too strong for the good guys to struggle with. But now the issue is Sukuna is too strong for the good guys to win with and make it feel reasonable, right? Because, like, if they beat Sukuna, even a Sukuna that's techniqueless, let's give Higuruma and Itadori the ultimate benefit of the doubt and say they mystically, magically managed to lock away Sukuna's techniques with confiscation, they get the DP, all that. Sukuna's more than smart enough to know how to control his curse energy, even without his curse technique. I think you and I know that. I think we do. So Leslie, he would still be 20-finger Sukuna, a character that was more than fast enough to blitz Kashimo Hajime, arguably one of the fastest characters in the series, was able to keep up with, for the most part, Satoru Gojo. Seems to have some sort of variation of precog on his own, completely independent of cursed energy and its sensory abilities that come with it. He's still already a monster. And once again, I need to remind y'all, 15 Finger had 99.8% of the verse on a leash. Literally wrapped it up and held it tight. He had a majority of the verse on a leash on its own. And of course, a big part of that was his domain, but a big part of that is just the fact that he's real and Sukuna and his stats are stupid. And sure, the big idea that I've heard is that, well, sorcerer growth is not linear, so anyone can catch up to it. But, like, the big issue that we had with Gojo is that Gojo was too strong, right? So if we suddenly introduce characters who are now stronger than Gojo, why get rid of Gojo in the first place? It's like this never-ending problem conundrum. It's a circle, essentially. Okay, you're Gege Akutami. You're writing JJK. Introduce Satoru Gojo. Satoru Gojo is really, really strong. He's on the good guy side. We need to have the good guy struggle. Okay, we'll put him in a box. Okay, but since we put him in a box, we're going to have to release him eventually. So in order to release him eventually, we're going to have to release him from the box. But we're back at square one now. Satoru Gojo is too strong for the story to have any real tension if he's on the good guy's side. So we need to get rid of Satoru Gojo, the strong guy. Okay, how are we going to get rid of the strong guy if he's literally the strongest thing and he's a bit too powerful for the story to function normally? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll introduce another guy, or use another guy to get rid of the stronger guy, and then put us there. But now Ryuman Sukuna is just a bit too strong. So now we need to do something to either A, introduce something that can knock the strong guy off his pedestal, putting us back at square one with Satoru Gojo, or we have to do something to the main villain in order to make it feel contrived so he can actually get knocked down and lose. If he's the main villain. I don't know. I'm still 50-50. Until I see Kenjaku's brain literally stepped on, I don't buy it. But with that being the case, we're back at square one. So how is Gege going to do this, right? Because now essentially Gege's left with the task of, I executed the strongest character in the verse by making a new strongest character in the verse. And the gap between this previous strongest character in the verse and everyone else was so large that this is where Gojo was, and here's everybody else combined. We literally get this confirmed. Because, remember what Hikari says before Gojo gets got. Hey, Yuta, don't go out there. Remember, Gojo said we were to not interfere until he was weaker than us. Remember the Gojo that is currently still stronger than Yuta and or Hikari, or if you take certain translations of that statement, all of them combined. It's a one-armed, low-output, omega-fatigued, getting ganked Gojo. That's the one that's still stronger than everybody. And remember, Sukuna's not stronger than that. Much stronger than that. presumably, his output's just fine. He can double chant completely as the perfect form for sorcery, 4 arms, probably the fastest character in the verse now if he's blitzing Kashimo. And at least faster or as fast as Blue and Gojo, who once again should be able to casually perception blitz everybody else in the verse. Like, the thing is, and a big reason Sukuna is so disturbing stats-wise is because unlike Gojo, where he was relative for the most part with Sukuna until he started using blue to amp his speed, Sukuna doesn't use his technique to amp his speed. It's just all physicals and cursed energy reinforcement. And once again, going back to the whole confiscation idea, Sukuna is more than skilled enough with cursed energy to not be affected by confiscation if it even happens. Which I'll make a whole video on why I think it's probably not going to. Because once again, Gege's meat. But with that being the case, Sukuna is just the fastest, even when he's relying just physicals. But Pencil, Higuruma, and Itadori were able to say he's clearly playing around. Very clear. He's smiling in their faces. He could have sneezed the cleave at Higuruma the moment he appeared in the sky. But nope, he's willing to play around and have fun. He's smiling in the middle of a domain expansion. That man knows he's good. So what do? Is this bad? Are we now in a spot where Gege kind of just has to make Sukuna job for no reason? Because, like, obviously the Kishimoto interview is not real. It is not. It is absolutely not real. Kaguya was a completely, entirely separate, autonomous invention. Kaguya was not introduced just to get rid of Madara, because Madara is too strong. Obviously, it doesn't even make sense. Why would you introduce someone who's stronger than Madara because Madara was too strong? Clearly, that is not a logical idea. But it is kind of, in a vague sense, similar, right? Like, Madara had to be removed by Black Zetsu because Madara was Madara and a bit too hard. And then we got Kaguya. So, right now, we're kind of with the Madara situation again. Except we don't have a Sage of Six past Naruto and Sasuke that could suddenly appear to dog on Madara. Unfortunately, I don't think Yuta's that him. If he's still apparently weaker, post him on time skip. This is entirely, they should know everyone's raw stat capabilities. If Yuta, post time skip, with Hikari, is still seemingly weaker than a one-armed, low-output Gojo, I don't think he's suddenly strong enough to leap up and deal with 20-finger Sukuna. I don't think so. True form, true body, I don't think all that. If Phantom Beast and Kashimo, a variation of a character that we have been waiting to see since he was introduced nearly 80 chapters up until his proper introduction, got not just no diff, negative diff, styled on, had his own attacks cut in half that was being told to dodge things. Let's see how many other casts is really supposed to do anything. If Hikari ain't like that, if Yuji ain't like that, heck, if we go with the idea that Maki's just fodder, and she can't even do nothing. Because she's weaker than Yuta and Hikari. She's not even mentioned by Hikari when it comes to, oh, well, you know, Gojo said not to go in until we were weaker than him. So Maki's not even in the conversation of raw power. And somehow you mean to tell me there's going to be a reasonable reason that they beat this Sukuna? Once again, say they even do get the confiscation, Sukuna still has Kabutoke. And guess what? They lost their only Pokemon with Volt Absorb. I don't see a single electric type anywhere else. I don't see a single one. Guess what? They all get bolted. You know, they're just one swing. Oh, jeez, this thing's fighting. Oh, it's fighting me. Oh, it's fighting. Yeah, why is it fighting me? So, oh, jeez. But a single swing of Kabutoke and boom, chicken nuggets everywhere. They're all fried. They're all literally fried. A whole bunch of chicken tenders. Just like that. This is with Kabutoke. So, worst case scenario, he still has his technique. And he can just regular cleave and dismantle, if not spatial slash everybody. Because remember, he can double chant. Easy as that. And we see, especially if you go by the anime's interpretation, Sukuna doesn't even have to move to activate this technique. He's good. We know he has some variation of precog, at least a similar phenomena to Toji and Maki, so he can read pretty much every attack that would come at him, regardless of cursed energy. We know he's the most skilled cursed energy user in the series, outside of maybe Kenjaku, but even then that's questionable. It may just be Sukuna now. So he has too many raw stats and abilities to make it feasible that the casting crew could get him. At least in my opinion, right? Like, if he had 15 finger and Megumi's body, not his own, was already more than fast enough to keep up with Maki, who in my opinion was the fastest of our crew. It's not looking good. If he, already at 15 finger, is most likely, in my opinion, stronger than Yuta Kotsu, stronger than Akari Genji, just based on him being able to perception plus and one tap Ryu, I would have to think that he's more than good enough. And then, do I need to mention the rest of the cast? I want you to look me dead in the eyes and tell me that you believe I can't wield a sword anymore. Miwa is doing something to 20 finger true form Sukuna. Go ahead. Say it, all you Miwa fans. I want to hear it. Let me know. I'll go all -5 because I know you don't exist. If you claim to exist, I know you're lying to me. You're just gaslighting me. I know you aren't real. But all you Momo fans, all -5 of you, I want you to look me dead in my eyes. I want you to tell me that you believe Momo with tool manipulation is going to do something to 20 finger Sukuna. All you Mei munchers out there, he's already aware of Bird Strike. I'm sorry. He knows to Kamutoke them immediately. He's afraid of it damaging him, but we know Bird Strike's not doing anything to that man. What are we gonna do? Teleport him to the sun? Make a big gallant sacrifice to save everybody? Yeah, that's not happening. So clearly, Sukuna's just too strong. He's just too mighty. He lost, no matter what. Gege's just gonna have to resort to some manner of bad writing in order to get Sukuna up out of here. Because how else is he gonna do it, right? Like, Sukuna, he's just too him. I know what we expected, man. It all came down to this eventually. Bad writing consumes us all, right? You can never take out a villain properly if you made him too powerful to actually be a major, possibly final villain. It's just unfortunate, man. It's real unfortunate. There's just no good way on this planet that Sukuna could be taken out reasonably. He's just too mighty. It's just too fat. And he smacked the massive twin dragons on the table. Did a little twirl with it. It's just too much. Unless, I don't actually believe that. And I think Sukuna can still be taken down just fine without bad writing. Now, here's the thing, right? I don't want to call Sukuna stupid but smart. But I am going to call him smart but stupid. Because, as Gojo mentions in their fight, he's playing pretty recklessly. Why is he doing this? As we see in 244, there's no reason that he should be tagged or yanked around or even have gotten into the situation at all where he could be locked in a domain expansion. There's no reason why Sukuna shouldn't win automatically. The moment Satoru Gojo fell, and the moment Phantom Beast Hajimekashimo got sneezed on, the series should have been over, right? Like, for all intents and purposes, the series should have been over, right? Like, he's so overwhelmingly powerful. But the thing is, Sukuna is smart yet stupid. Because if there's one thing that man can do, it's underestimate people. And the thing about Jujutsu Kaisen is that underestimation can be the greatest weakness ever. Now, I know some people are going to be like, well, him underestimating people and losing would ultimately still kind of be some variation of bad writing. And I'd agree if it wasn't already a very well-established part of his character. Sukuna, unfortunately for him, he just isn't known as the most efficient of guys. Like, think of all of his most major fights in the entire series. Him versus Maharaga. He's toying around trying to figure out Maharaga's technique. Him against Gojo. He's literally messing around with a new technique he got like a month ago because he thought it was neat as he heard it and fought it like a month ago. Heck, even Sukuna versus Chogo, he's just messing around. Sukuna is notorious for his lack of long-term insight. Just part of the character. That's just how he is. It's what makes him one of the more likable characters and one of the more likable villains. He likes to hold back. He likes to mess around. He likes to have himself a good old time when he fights. And luckily enough, our cast and crew has a whole bunch unknown about them. We still don't fully understand what Yuji's new thing is. Sure, it's pretty much hard confirmed in 244 that he has a variation of blood manipulation. based on what he says to Kamo. But what else could he have? We don't know. Sure, Yudo Okotsu, at the moment, only has 3 techniques. He only has True Shikigami technique, Curse Speech, and Sky Manipulation. But he had a whole month. He had a whole bunch of footage, and he had to honestly have some of the best teachers in the world. So who knows what else he has. Hikari Kenji. We know a lot about him. We literally had his whole technique explained to us. But still, there's a whole bunch of mystery behind what a 777 jackpot could do for him. And ultimately what Sukuna would interact with. And of course, Higuruma Hiromi. Well, I may believe that Sukuna is going to find his way to weasel him way out of a trial. Or something else. It's very likely that Sukuna, in a very similar vein to how he underestimated many people before, will just say, yeah, I did that, and I'm not going to deny it. And Sukuna would be more than willing to put himself in a compromised situation just to have a bit more fun. This is something that I feel like Gege's been seeding for the character for a long time. Unlike someone like Kenjaku, who's very methodical, for the most part. Admittedly, Kenjaku, he do be doing some stuff. That's just weird. But Kenjaku, we see as recently as his final fight and his most recent appearance in the manga, he plays sensors, trackers. He's consistently watching and making sure Gojo versus Sukuna goes in certain ways and making sure that he's safe from the cast and crew that's going to come get him. He's methodical. He's calculating. If he were to do what Sukuna did at his level of power, it would be out of character. And it would be a bit of bad writing for him to suddenly be so stupid. But for Sukuna, a character who's kind of been known for letting his food sit there on the table, be played with, messed around with, and ultimately maybe rise up against him, it's not too unreasonable. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened. And luckily enough, there's just enough unknowns on both sides that it could go either way. Sure, we don't know much about Sukuna, not even his real name. But Sukuna doesn't know that much about our cast and crew and what they could have done. I don't even think he knows Yuda's technique. I genuinely don't think he does. Because Yuda didn't use it against Yuji. And I highly doubt Yuda went around spatting it out right before the Killing Games, which is about the only time they had to meet. So Sukuna probably doesn't even know about copy. He may be opening himself up for the juiciest spatial slash this side of the Mississippi. He may recognize the Soul Split Katana. Maybe. But Maki very explicitly does not use it on him and doesn't mention it to him. So it's likely he doesn't know that much about that. Hikari Kenji, once again, 777. That's up in the air. We don't know. And same thing with Yuji Itadori, the man who Sukuna underestimated the most. Who knows what he has now that he has evolved past his old limits. That's the beauty of Jujutsu Kaisen and the beauty of Sukuna's fall, in my opinion. It will be something unexpected. But luckily enough, unlike in other series where the unexpected feels unexpected and wrong, I feel in my heart of hearts the unexpected for Sukuna will be beautiful on the side of the heroes. Once again, huffing straight copium, will be real with you. I mentioned that there are a bunch of unknowns on both sides. I wasn't just talking about the unknowns of Sukuna. I'm also talking about the unknowns of Kenjaku. Now, the two do seem to be on amicable terms, of course, and obviously Kenjaku is currently rolling around at the speed of sound. Got places to go. He's got to follow a rainbow. He can't stick around. He's got to keep moving on. Full speed ahead. There's only one way to find out. But the merger is moving ahead. You can't follow it. It's going on its own lead instead. I can't picture the rest of the song, but we shall keep on moving along because Kenjaku still, most likely in one way or another, will initiate the merger. And the merger is supposed to be the cursed conglomerate of all the energy in Japan. And ultimately, need to remind you what Sukuna truly is about. And its base nature. Just based on what we know of the character so far. Once again, we don't even know his name, so maybe this isn't true about him. But at least from my understanding of Sukuna, if there's one thing he's about, it's stagnation. He loves the world the way it is and how to enjoy it. And ultimately, Kenjaku wanting to take away his massive food source by throwing it all together in one gigantic conglomerate, seems a little bit against Sukuna's agenda, Sukuna's ideas, as the merger is the ultimate idea of progress, of forward movement, of evolution, versus the stagnation of the king. And thusly, with Kenjaku believing that his will be carried on in one way or another, and the whole idea of Sukuna needing to fall, right? One way or another. We are reading a shonen manga after all. Wouldn't it be oh so ironic if the pinnacle of creation, the peak of Jujutsu, the figurehead for stagnation, fell to something that was oh so evolved as the merger itself? But once again, I'm just offering ideas. Different ways that Sukuna could fall. And ultimately, I don't think it would be bad writing. Do I think Gege did kind of somewhat write themselves into a corner while making Sukuna as powerful as they did? Yeah. Wasn't about the smartest thing he could have done in this moment. But I still think there's hope. If there's one thing I have in Gege, despite how many times they shatter my ankles, shatter my soul, and hurt my feelings, it's faith. It's faith. And honestly, with all that Gege Akutami has cooked before, I'm more than excited to see them cook again. And of course, this is all under the assumption that Sukuna has to lose. Why not? For once. It's one time. As Yuta Kosu said himself, just this once. Why not let the villains win? And have them have their own little happily ever after. However, that's what I think. Please let what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the Fallen King in the comment section down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below, where you can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dagger the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, O'Connor Plains, Redwell 4765, and Greyhound. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, and Demix LND. I'd like to give a juicy old thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. I'd like to give a healthy thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idemokami. I'd like to give a shonka dunka honka thunka thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give a scrumdiddlyumptious super science thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.